Good morning. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. We have a high of 74 today, and by the end of next week, it's gonna be in the low 80s. So today I'm gonna work on transplanting out some of my starts. I'm so excited. I'm gonna show you what they look like right now. I feel like they've been ready for a while. I started them at the end of December, and they're definitely ready to go. I have a whole lot of eggplant, peppers, tomatoes. We have some melons and a few herbs here and there. Actually, let me show you this right here. So a lot of my peppers I started back in December, and it took a while for them to germinate, but these right here are some Thai peppers. I didn't have any seeds for them, but I recently bought some at a market and my husband fell in love with them, so I de-seeded one of them, popped the seeds in a little Ziploc bag, and within about 3 to 4 days they were ready to transplant. Look at that. So I'm very excited to grow this variety this year. I feel like we've gone through them a lot faster than we did our serranos and jalapenos. So there's that. And then I have all my tomatoes here. A lot of these really need a nice drink of water. The pots feel kind of light, but it's fine. I'm gonna water them in once I transplant them. So let's go ahead and do that first. By the way, the garden is a little messy again, but what's new? It's always messy anyways. I went ahead and put a lot of sunscreen on because it's really hot right now. So this year I wanted to try not to use shade cloth all over the garden and let it be nice and sunny. I'm not sure how well or how long that will last because it's gonna get really hot. I figured I'd do one row of really large vegetables like corn, or maybe corn and sunflowers mixed together, because this section right here, I want to keep it kind of clear. That way I can have melons climbing up these trellises, and I don't want to impose on that. And if I plant things that are too tall right here, I think they'll take away from the shape of the trellises. Who knows though, it might still look really pretty. Maybe it'll just look like, it might just make it look like it's more of a solid trellis versus being open in the center. So I might try it, we'll have to see. But for right now, I really want to keep the shape, I think. I think the shape is really pretty. That means that I'm gonna be transplanting some of my tomatoes out over here. And honestly, the broccoli is probably not going to last for very long because it's getting way too warm for it. So it's most likely going to start bolting. Wait, is this? Let me see here. Oh, this tomato I had tried to transplant out a while ago. It did not make it. It's cool though. What kind of broccoli is this? Oh, this is the Calabrese broccoli. Yeah, so I'm gonna transplant the tomatoes out here either way, and then eventually I'll just take these plants out once they start bolting, and then the tomatoes can just take off and remain there. I'm gonna try and figure out a trellis system. I know I've seen the one where they use those tomahawks, I think they're called, and then they have those pipes as a structure, and then they use a string. So I'm thinking about that. I just don't know if I'll like the look of it, but you know what, it might just work out. So yeah, the tomatoes are gonna be over on this side. The reason being that if I have the corn here in the center, they'll give a little bit of relief for the tomatoes during the hottest parts of the day, but they're still gonna get morning sun and then and a bit of afternoon sun before it goes down. Okay, I think I'm gonna start transplanting and see as I go. One of the things that I've realized I'm not very good at is planning out the garden. In past seasons, I've created whole spreadsheets, I've drawn it out several times, and then when it comes time to plant things out, I start popping them anywhere. So I feel like I waste more time planning it and then not sticking to my plan, and then I wind up taking more time just to get things out here. So you know what, we're just gonna roll with it, and we're just gonna see how it turns out. Hopefully it turns out good. And see, the thing I'm also trying to keep in mind is that there's stuff in the garden still that I don't want to take out quite yet. I want to give it a few more weeks. So I'm sort of interplanting tomatoes, and then as the tomatoes start taking off, a lot of the vegetables will go away, and then I'll continue going that way, because I don't want to tear everything out right now if we can still get a few harvests out of it, because the tomatoes aren't going to be producing for another few weeks anyways. So let's go ahead and do that. And I could also use some of these trellises to trellis up tomatoes. I think that would actually look really pretty, but I really do want to reserve them for melons. If you guys watch any of my TikToks, I am obsessed with the way the melons look when they were dangling down, and I think I want to keep that look. Yeah. Okay, all right, let's go. So I'm actually gonna pop a Brad's Atomic Grape right here. You could barely see due to the broccoli. So I'm doing 1 tomato per square foot. I know that that's pretty close, and maybe I might wind up regretting it, but we're gonna try it out and see how it works out. So we're gonna do it about right here. I'm gonna start off by making my hole. I want to bury these as deep as possible. So I want to make sure that my hole is wide enough. Maybe like right there. Maybe that's even a little too wide. But I want to make sure that it's buried very deeply, so that we can make sure it has a really good root system. Inside of the hole, I'm actually going to toss in some compost because I'm not going to amend the whole bed. I already have stuff growing in here, and I think that would take too much time to try and go around every single plant. So instead, I'm going to amend every single planting. That way I save on some time. And into the hole, I'm also going to sprinkle in some tomato tone. Move that around a bit, and then let's take a look at our plant. So you guys can see some leaves down here. I'm gonna tear those off, and maybe a few more up the stem as well. I'm gonna take this one off too. There we go, just like that. Let's get it out, and look at those beautiful roots. And before I backfill with the rest of the soil, I'm actually gonna sprinkle a little bit more compost in there, and then backfill with the soil I removed. And honestly, I could have buried that one a bit deeper. Okay, and I'm gonna add all my mulch. And this one is ready to go. Wait, did I say this was Atomic Grape? This one's actually Barry's Crazy Cherry. Wait, what? Is this one indeterminate? I really just want all of these to be indeterminate. Hold on, let me check. Okay, the good news is it is indeterminate, as is Brad's Atomic Grape. So we're gonna move on to that one next. Once I'm done planting all of them, I'm gonna come in and water them in with some fish fertilizer to give them a really nice boost, and I think that's gonna help them take off. Compost. Tomato tone. And then tomato plant. So again, I'm going to remove the bottom leaves and a few going up the stem. That way the stem can start rooting as well. And those roots look so beautiful. Actually, I feel like I should plant this one much deeper. Let's backfill with a little bit of compost and then the other soil. And the tag, and that one's ready to go. This year I'm also doing this challenge where I'm trying to grow peppers, eggplant, and tomatoes in 3-gallon pots. This one is a 3.58 gallon. I got it after purchasing a tree, and then I just saved the pot, so I'm gonna reuse it. And this is one of the ones that I picked up from the Greenhouse Mega Store. So I'm basically gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna dig my hole. In here I'm putting some Roma tomatoes. I've also transplanted a couple other ones, but I did that a few days ago. So I'm gonna sprinkle in some compost. Oops. And then this plant right here, oh wait, also my tomatoes. Here's what this little plant looks like, and I actually have 3 seedlings in here, so I'm gonna separate them to try and get more plants out of them. Thankfully, these are not as far along as some of my other tomatoes were, so they're a little easier to separate. See, there you go. So I'm gonna pop one right here. I'm gonna start backfilling with some compost. And then I'm gonna finish it off with the rest of the soil. One of these will go into the garden, I think the smaller one. And then this one right here will go into this pot. Honestly, I think I prefer this method of adding the compost first. The reason I'm doing this too is because I amended the garden beds about 2 or 3 months ago. So it wasn't too long ago and it was really time consuming. So I'm trying to hold off as much as possible before doing it again. I've already gone through and popped a bunch of tomatoes throughout the garden. And now I'm popping in some peppers into these pots. So here I have a habanero. This one is an ají cachucha. And this one is a jalapeno. And I'm doing the exact same thing where I'm making my hole, adding my compost, and I'm also adding in some tomato tone. Not too much or too little. With these, I'm not really gonna plant them too deep. I want them to be sort of at the same level. And their roots look really nice. Thankfully, these didn't get as root bound as some of my tomatoes. And I actually have a couple of other ones that haven't even gotten their true leaves in. So I'm gonna keep an eye on them so that I can pop them into the garden when the time comes. I honestly didn't even realize how many peppers I was starting up until today when I started actually trying to find spots for them. We use a lot of peppers in our cooking, but yeah, I definitely started a lot. The good thing is because we haven't hit our last frost, although honestly, it's already gonna start creeping up into the 80s, so I don't know. My trees are waking up. It really does feel like spring, and I know soon it's gonna feel like summer, like into those 100, 105, 110, and I'm dreading it, but right now it feels nice. You know what's crazy too is I think when we're used to the really hot weather and then it dips down into the 80s, we're like, wow, this weather is so nice, it's so refreshing and cool. But right now, because I've been used to the 60s and 70s, now that it's creeping up into the 80s, I'm like, oh, it's so hot out here. I told my husband it's almost unbearably hot. There you go, my habanero. In a few weeks, I'm also gonna go to Tractor Supply to pick up another bale of hay or of straw because I want to toss it into my mulcher to cover my garden beds again, because I feel like it breaks down so fast that the layer is like less than an inch thick right now, and I need it to be quite thicker by the time summer hits, because I feel like some of the beds I didn't even realize, the ones that get the most sun, seem to be a little dry. So I'm gonna go through and water everything by hand right now, just to make sure there's enough water coverage. Now this one does have 2 seedlings in here. I'm gonna leave them both in there, and I'm gonna come thin them out in a few weeks. I'll thin them out after our last frost, I promise. It's just because it hasn't hit yet. If it does wind up getting colder and one of these dies, I just want to have a backup. Is that the smartest thing to do? No, but I can never bring myself to thin them out up until it's far too late. I could also just try and separate them and pop another one throughout the garden, but I already have another transplant that I'm going to pop into the other garden beds. So again, yes, I did start too many peppers, but it's okay. It's okay. Right now I'm working on some of my melons. Here I had some sweet peas that honestly never took off. They were really stunted. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove them. And then on this side of the trellis, I'm gonna place 2 melons, one on this side and one right here. And I can already tell I really need to go through and water these. I mean, because the mulch is so thin, I feel like the first few inches of the soil are really dry, and that is not at all what I want. Also, I may or may not just have spent about 10 minutes looking for my trowel because I lost them, and I have 2, and I don't know where I left my other one either. So I'm going to dig my 2 holes, one right there and one right here. But see, this is a good thing though, that inside the soil is really nice and moist. It's just that initially the top few inches are a little too dry, and I think once I lay more mulch down, that'll solve the problem. But for right now, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna sprinkle in some compost, some fertilizer. I'm gonna mix it in together. And on this side, I have the Kajari melon and a sugar baby watermelon. I think I'm gonna go for the Kajari melon. I already planted some from seeds I saved from my garden. So I'm trying to be as gentle as possible so I don't disturb any of those roots. And look how beautiful these plugs look. And again, first I backfill with a little bit of compost and then the rest of the soil. And then I add my mulch back around it. I'm gonna place my tag right there. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the back. In a few weeks, I'm going to check back, and if I notice that these are struggling too much, I'm just going to direct sow some seeds. This is my first time transplanting melons because usually I like to direct sow them. I feel like they might have a later start, but they take off a lot faster. Just like that. Either way though, I might still go in and re-sow some seeds in a few weeks. That way I can do some succession planting. And by the time we harvest them from these vines and they're ready to come down, the other vines will start taking off. And then we'll get a constant supply of melons, because that's one of my kids' favorite thing in the garden. So there you go, and then I'll start training the vines to go up. Because some of these pots were a little too dry, first I'm gonna water them in, and then I'm gonna give them a sip of some fish fertilizer. There you go. I'm trying really hard to avoid getting the leaves wet. Some of the tomatoes that I separated look a little too sad, which I understand. They're gonna perk up in a few days, but in the meantime, they're just kind of flopped over. I'm still trying to make sure not to get their leaves too wet though. Okay, I see water running out the bottom of this one. Oh, same thing with this one. This one needs a little bit more water, and so does this one. That one probably does too. I'm gonna pour in a tiny bit of fish fertilizer. I wanna make sure it's really nice and closed. One time I was watering in my banana and I hadn't closed it all the way. When I shook it, it went all over me. It was disgusting. And I feel like no matter how much I scrubbed, I could smell it on me for a few days. So I just do a little bit. This stuff stinks, by the way, but the plants really love it. And I'm also gonna do the same. I'm also gonna go through and water in all of the other ones that I placed inside of the garden beds. Jet. Let's do full. And then I'm gonna give each of these a nice sip. There you go. Cool. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these pepper plants right here, and I want to top them, which means these are the ones I didn't thin out, by the way. But these two leaves I'm gonna keep. I'm gonna take off this top leaf right here. I'm gonna take off the top to get them to branch out. And honestly, I could probably even do it. No, I'm gonna do it right here. I might come in and, is that my kitchen? Hold on. My husband just burnt the rice. But by doing this, I hope that these are able to branch out, and then this is just some straw that I shredded in my mulcher, so it's really nice and fine, and it's gonna help me to keep these tomato leaves off the ground while they recover, because I don't want them to start getting any sort of disease on them. Oh, I'm gonna get some of that fish fertilizer on me. Now it's time to place them out. Next, I'm watering in all of the garden beds. I feel like this is gonna be one of the last times that I'll be able to do this because it's gonna get far too hot. only took like an hour, but I'm finally done watering all the garden beds. And see, now setting up drip seems very enticing. But now I'm gonna go ahead and water in all of my transplants with a little bit of fish fertilizer as well. Okay, I'm gonna keep going until I get every single one of them. The last thing I'm doing is giving my little seedlings over here a small drink of water with fish fertilizer because I want them to grow fast. I just had lunch. I'm so full. I really just want to go lay down for a little bit. But before I call it a day, I'm going to finish setting up the trellises or try to get as much done as possible because that's going to be one of the most time-consuming projects. And I'll finish the rest of my checklist throughout the week. I still have a lot of things to do, like fertilizing the garden beds. I need to fertilize all of my fruit trees. I need to direct sow a ton of stuff. I was supposed to direct sow seeds about 3 weeks ago. I never got around to it. I need to repot some roses, and then what else? Oh, I need to finish setting up the irrigation as well. There's a lot of pots that either don't have the irrigation set up or I've tossed it off to the side since I was repotting a lot of my trees. So I want to make sure that it's back on, that way I can go ahead and turn it on again. And I also want to go ahead and set a little, what are those things called? Oh, like the little valve to be able to close and open for every single tree, just because some trees are going to want more water than others, and I want to make sure I have control of every single one. That way I'm not overwatering or underwatering. Anyways, let's go ahead and finish up the trellises. A few days ago I stopped by Walmart and I picked up some more cup hooks in the color gold. The color doesn't really matter, but I feel like they blend in a little bit more easily. And then this morning I stopped by Lowe's and I picked up some more 6-foot stakes. So let's get to it. I'm finally done with the trellises. It's time to go inside. I am exhausted. The sun is about to go down soon, but it's been a really productive day, so there's still so much to do, but I'll leave that for another day.